I know, it's been over a week since I've done a review and I've done a video. I apologize for that, folks, believe me. I've just been on edge for a couple of days. I haven't exactly been in the best of moods. So you know what, I'm just going to do a review right now and just get it off my chest and just relax. Mysterious Girlfriend X. Now, the story of Mysterious Girlfriend X follows the story of Akira Tsubaki, who is a young boy in high school, and all of a sudden he meets a transfer student who comes in on the first day by the name of Mikoto Arabe, a young girl who's kind of a bit of an oddball at first. I mean, she bounced off in uncontrollable fits of laughter at random, and the fact that she carries a pair of scissors in her underwear. One day, Tsubaki comes into the classroom and wakes Arabe up while she is napping, but at the same time he notices the pile of drool resting where Arabe was sleeping. He puts his finger in the drool, sticks it in his mouth, and tastes her drool, and all of a sudden now he is completely infatuated with Arabe and completely obsessed with her, to the point that he can actually get sick if he doesn't continually taste it. From there, the story follows the development of the relationship between Tsubaki and Arabe as they are both boyfriend and girlfriend, and how their relationship evolves throughout the course of the story, and not only how it affects themselves, how it changes them over time, and how it affects others potentially as well. Now, just to set up a little bit of context, folks, I'm not one for the super lovey-dovey romantic comedy type things, like when it comes to films or shows or anything like that. I mean, if they can do a believable romance for me, that's really hard, and to me, really buy into it, that's, I think, an accomplishment. I mean, there's just not that many things I could consider a great romance or a believable romance at best. That being said, however, I actually really liked Mysterious Girlfriend X. I was surprised by the fact that I was able to get involved with the show. I bought into the romance between these two characters and how it went and how all it progressed. I was surprised at how much I was able to get into the show and progress along with the romance, and actually bought into the development of the relationship of Tsubaki and Arabe. It was very sweet to see. And overall, if I had to say one thing for the show overall, is that it left me very relaxed and very hopeful and with a smile on my face by the time it was over. But let me go in a little bit more detail as to why I say this. Now, the first thing that the show has to nail is the focus of the relationship between the two main characters, and in that it does it very well. Each of the characters involved, Tsubaki and Arabe, all have their own different dynamics of what they want in a relationship, or how they think it should work, or what each of them bring to the table in terms of what they would like it for it to be, and how they focus on a different aspect of the relationship. Tsubaki, in the beginning, is more focused on like having a typical relationship. Like, say he wants a picture of his girlfriend smiling, he wants to hold hands, he wants to give her a hug. Well, Arabe, on the other hand, is more focused on I would like to think, the unique aspects of a relationship, in the fact that she wants a bond, as she calls it, with her boyfriend that she does not share with anyone else, which makes sense. And the way that she does this is by the exchange of her drool to his mouth. Now, as disgusting and probably gross as that concept might sound for some people, when you really think about it, it kind of makes sense in their own way. I mean, the fact is, you want something special to be with the partner that you are going out with and you obviously feel an emotional connection with. And for Arabe, this is that very thing, is that the exchange of putting her finger in her mouth, giving him drool, and making him taste it, is expressing a bond on which words and actions don't exactly do justice. A little bit easier, I will admit, to please someone like me on, because I like to enjoy the visual beauty of someone taking so much time and effort into drawing, coloring, and animating these images, putting it all together in a cohesive way. But there's one thing I noticed about the art style in this one in particular that I will admit I might be overanalyzing into this particular part, but this is just something I took away from it, is that in certain portions of the show, I noticed in the blurry picture quality that you could tell somewhere that you could see where the coloring for the characters, you could tell where they were colored in and the patterns they were colored in, sort of kind of giving it a rough sketchbook-like style. It's almost as if someone actually wrote it in a sketchbook, which is probably what happened. wrote it in a sketchbook, and then animated it. It's sort of like, you know those little flip books where you have this certain image, stationary image in one image, but if you flip it really fast, it moves? This is kind of like that. It's like, it has that similar quality, but I took that little bit of roughness and that little kind of sketchbook-ish style as a meaning of saying, like, this is still a relationship that's still a little bit rough around the edges. They don't quite have the dynamic there yet. They don't have each other figured out yet, which makes sense. And so I took that as sort of a compliment to the dynamic of the show between the characters, and it worked pretty well, and it was still nice to look at. One thing I have to mention, though, that I found a little bit strange is the fact that the show is rated MA. I don't understand why, though, because, I mean, this show could have been easily R and would have been fine with that. But I guess the reason why is that there are some bits where Arabe is completely nude, but even in those scenes, like, she's only nude, I would say, maybe twice in the entire show, like, you actually see her. But even then, it's like, they cover her up, they censor it, I wouldn't like to say they do like a J.J. Abrams, like, lens flare or something like that, but they do kind of a similar fashion where you can't exactly see everything, and plus the way they position and angle it, it's all very kind of discreet and a little bit subtle. And so it's not like, oh, like, in-your-face fan service. And you guys know me by now. I don't ever regard fan service as an objective point of criticism. I don't ever see a point of getting upset about it, but that's just me. Either way, I didn't feel like the fan service in this one, or at least the nudity in this one, was obtuse or out of place. It actually did manage to serve a purpose. Like, both times that she was nude in this show, there was a point to it, in the fact that it was trying to convey an amount of emotional intensity and to convince Tsubaki, convince Tsubaki of the genuine nature of their relationship and trying to see the bond and how strong it was between them. And so I actually got into it, which leads me into another segue into somewhat of another aspect of the show that I liked, is the fact that whenever it comes to most romantic relationships or depictions on film or in animation, one thing that consistently annoys me is that one scene in particular, and you guys know about maybe about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through the events, there's some misunderstanding that happens that causes the couple to break up, and they both hate each other, they come back together, and they realize they can't live without each other. If there's one thing I'll say that I give this show massive props for, is that I never felt like it got to that point. In fact, if you ever think it's going to get to that point, Arabe is one to confront that issue head on with Tsubaki and say, let's work this out. We're gonna try to I'm gonna settle this issue right here, right now. And you know what? The best part is she doesn't get mad at Tsubaki for being a guy. Now, granted, there are some points where she is a bit possessive, and so is Tsubaki, so they're both kind of on the same level. But at the same time, there's never a point where it's like they get to like, I hate you, and it's just like, and it just forces the couple to separate for artificial reasons when we know that they're gonna get together, when we pretty much can see the writing on the wall. Another thing I liked about this show is the fact that this relationship is not really isolated in terms of how it affects other people. And what I mean by that is the relationship between Tsubaki and Arabe is something that becomes a little bit more known and a little bit less secretive than original, with one of the other students and classmates and trying to figure like, okay, well, how are they progressing in their relationship versus another relationship, seeing like, okay, how do we take this page out of their book and try to apply it to ours and try to work on a relationship building the bond between other people, which I think is a little bit more real, another bit of that's kind of realistic. I mean, granted, to be fair, I've never been in a relationship in my life, I've never had a girlfriend, so I don't exactly know how the whole dynamics of that work, but I would imagine this is how it proceeds, is that the relationship between two people is not strictly isolated to just them and how it affects them only. There's going to be people that are going to be affected by the dynamics that they have with other people, and so the way it affects them is not exactly focused on, considering it's about the main characters, but again, the fact that they mention it is something I felt like it was necessary, and it felt like more, I really don't want to say realistic, but it felt more true to life, what you would see. And one final thing I have to mention about this show is the ending. I really, really like the way this show ended. It took place and it took action in a place where I did not suspect that it would, and it actually made me feel like, wow, Urabe genuinely cares about Tsubaki. She genuinely cares about this relationship that he has with her and about the bond that they share, and the fact that the show ends the way that it ends is on a very hopeful note. It makes you feel like, you know what, these two, it seems like everything's going to work out just fine. They might be a little bit young, they might have it a little bit rough around the edges, but overall I'd say the relationship is going to progress very naturally, very healthy, and it's actually going to work out for these two. So with all this praise I have, with all the good feelings I have surrounding this anime, I would have to say Mysterious Girlfriend X is absolutely worth every penny. So everybody, that is my review of Mysterious Girlfriend X. I hope you enjoyed it, and I got a little bit of an announcement for this upcoming episode. As some of you may or may not know, I took a look at my videos in terms of how much I had made so far, and it turns out my next episode will be episode 50, which surprises the living hell out of me considering the fact that I never thought I'd get this far. But what I'm going to do is that some people have been asking me to review some of my favorite things of all time. So what I'm going to do for the episodes 50, 51, and 52 is that I'm going to review something what I call the Triumvirate. And what I mean by that is a series of games between the years of 2003 and 2005 that came out that were, to me, very, very essential, almost like the awakening of my gaming sensibilities. I mean, sure, there were the games I had at the dawn of when I started playing, but these three in particular, if I ever had to make a top 10 list, these would probably be in that list. These games just matter to me a lot, and so I understand if my next couple of reviews are not going to be as objective as my previous ones, but these games itself mean a lot to me, and I want to share them all with you. But I'm going to play something a little bit more fun here. I want to give you guys a chance to figure out what these games are. So, just to make this easy, there's one game per year that came out in those years. One in 2003, one in 04, and one in 05. And I'm going to leave it up to you to guess what that game is. And the first person who guesses it right gets a shout out at the end of the video. Now, let me make this clear. There are some people who already know what those games are. And for those of you who already know this, do not comment on this video. If you don't know, go ahead and comment away. But if those of you who do, don't do it. Okay? I don't want to spoil this for the rest of my viewers. I want to keep my subs and my viewers as oblivious and in the dark as possible, and I want them to genuinely guess what it is. And again, I want to congratulate people who don't know the answer already. I mean, you can't exactly congratulate someone who already knows all the answers to the test before they take it. That doesn't make any sense. Now, to give you guys credit, I definitely think you're smart enough to guess what these games are. They're not exactly, well, to be fair, the first one and the third one are probably going to be easier to guess. The second one is going to definitely be the more obscure of the bunch. But still, I'm going to just narrow it down to platform, and you guys can guess what it all is. Now, the 2003 game was available on either PC or Xbox. Just take it away and guess away what you think it might be, and the first one who gets it right will get a shout out at the end of the video. If you also want to post it on Twitter, I'll put a link in the description below for my Twitter account. So until next time, everybody, I'm Perry the One-Armed Legend. You name it, I can play it, and I'll see you in 3 days for the review of my 2003 Part 1 of the Triumvirate.